Hello and welcome. In this section, we will talk about the necessary paperwork you will need in order to incorporate your nonprofit. We will then discuss sustainability and conclude with some final thoughts. Part 4, paperwork. Once you've decided your mission, develop an operations strategy, and start building a board and team of volunteers, it's time to prepare and file your incorporation documents and 501c3 status applications. If you've done your homework properly in documenting your mission, your strategy, and your plans, the application process should be pretty straightforward. That doesn't mean, however, that it will be easy. In part 4, we will go over briefly the multitude of paperwork and the documents you will need to compile and file in order to obtain your nonprofit status. We have compiled a general checklist of things that need to be developed and submitted in order to receive your nonprofit incorporation. The first point on the checklist is to reserve the organization's name. To avoid possible infringement on a reserved name, do a thorough search on all the business names you will use. Check with your state. In Kentucky, this will be done through the Business Filings and Records online services through the Secretary of State's office. You should also contact the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office at the USPTO government website to make sure that the name that you want to use is available. The second point is to start preparing and filing your articles of incorporation. The articles of incorporation are legal documentation of the creation of the corporation. In the articles, what's included are the name of the corporation, the purpose or the mission statement. The IRS will often scrutinize this statement because it limits your activities to those consistent with your purpose, and your specific purpose must comply with what is permissible. A statement that the corporation does not afford a profit to its members or others. The articles include the period of duration of the organization's existence, which in many cases may be perpetual, the location of the organization's registered office, the name and address of each incorporator, information about the board of directors, including the initial members, names and addresses, note that the number of initial members does not need to equal the number that will eventually be established in the bylaws, but it's best to check with your state for the minimum age requirement for members. The extent of personal liability, if any, of members for any corporate obligations, methods of enforcement and collection, provisions for the distribution of corporate assets and dissolution, and whether or not there will be a membership separate from the board of directors. These articles of incorporation are often filed at your state's Secretary of State's corporate office, corporate division office, I should say. There is a fee, and then often you need to file an annual report. to comply with the Secretary of State's rules and regulations. Best to check the state's website to make sure you have the updated forms and for more detailed information. Next, you'll have to apply for the Federal Employer Identification Number, or EIN. This you will use Form SS4 from the IRS. This number works like a Social Security number for your organization. Instructions of the form and the form itself are available on the irs.gov website. Prepare your organization's bylaws. The bylaws are often referred to and seen as the organization's, quote, rule book. The bylaws give structure to organizations and govern most of its internal affairs. It outlines financial and legal procedures and the purpose of the organization, determines who has power and how that power works. It helps prevent conflicts and disagreements. It protects against the misuse of funds, outlines details regarding the board, how it operates, the size, the tenure of each member, the number of meetings that you will have, the number of officers, as well as committees. These bylaws should be reviewed by an attorney to ensure that they meet the legal requirements of the state and that they conform to the Articles of Incorporation. Now, oftentimes, the bylaws may not be appropriate forever and should therefore contain steps by which they can be revised as needed. Templates and samples of nonprofit bylaws can often be found online through a general internet search. This is also available by calling the Center for Nonprofit Excellence, and we may have a couple of samples that we can share as well. The fifth point, develop a business plan or a strategic plan as discussed in part 3. This process will help you if you apply to the IRS for tax-exempt status and will be the basis for grant applications and any fundraising that you want to do. Then you'll want to file with the IRS a 501c3 federal tax exemption by submitting IRS Form 1023. Then you apply for nonprofit designation from the IRS. If your organization is likely to qualify, apply for tax-exempt status by completing all the paperwork of the application and Form Publication 557. There is a fee for this, and you have to return all the paperwork to the IRS. Remember, if you expect to collect donations that are tax deductible, you need to get IRS approval as both a tax-exempt organization and as an organization able to accept tax-deductible contributions. Nonprofit organizations file for 501c3 tax exemption status by using Form 1023, and that form can be found on the irs.gov website. Next, you should obtain needed state licenses. These licenses are used to apply for a state, in the state of Kentucky, Commonwealth Business Identifier, or CBI number, as well as many other state licenses. It's also used to register trade names. But before completing an application, you might want to view business license information through the Kentucky Department of Revenue or your state local revenue office. Next, you will want to register with the state charitable solicitations program and/or charitable trust program. Registration is not required for all nonprofits. To determine if your organization meets registration requirements, visit the Secretary of State's website and look for charities and trust. Generally, any organization that conducts charitable solicitations in the state must register under the Charitable Solicitations Act. But there are some exceptions for political organizations and churches. Contact the charities program directly for more information regarding exemptions. There is a filing fee for new registrations as well as renewals. Obtain a business license from the city in which you're doing business. Often the cities will require specific licenses in order to raise money for your organization or for any other business that you want to conduct within the city or county limits. You may also want to apply for a nonprofit mailing permit through the U.S. Postal Service. This allows you the special discounted rate for any bulk mailing you wish to use. You all should also obtain all needed insurance, such as director and officers insurance, any liability insurance, if you're working with clients at your organization or off-site. You might also want to consider various property insurance and other insurances as it relates to transportation or business. And finally, part 5, we'll discuss sustainability and some final thoughts. There are 3 key points to consider once you've established your nonprofit. And in order to keep it sustainable, you must continue to be relevant. You must continue to seek results. And you need the necessary resources in order to continue to do your work. For the first point, as it relates to relevance, this is why the initial research and your due diligence is important. You get information about the need for your organization. You learn about the issues of concern for creating the programs and services. You'll get to network with your community, and you become familiar with the leaders and with the clients that you're trying to serve. So you must continue to make sure that your organization remains relevant, and it's something that the community needs and wants, that goes beyond what you have a vision and passion for. And while we support and applaud individuals who look to do good in the community, it is best to find out and learn what the community needs and what the client thinks it's good. This ensures that what you can offer and what your organization's goals, missions, and visions are aligned with what the community wants and what the community needs. Are you showing results? Are your programs making an impact? And if so, how do you know? And then resources. Do you have the necessary resources that you need? Both human resources and financial resources. Without both, it's hard to remain sustainable. This is why all the initial plans beforehand, the strategic plan, the financial plan, the fundraising plan, all make it possible and viable for you to seek out and obtain the necessary resources you need in order to succeed. Thank you for listening to this video. Now, CNPE does not provide one-on-one assistance to start a nonprofit, but there may be opportunities locally to receive low-cost, or maybe even pro bono legal or accounting help. Organizations like the Legal Aid Society or your local bar association may offer help, but they may not necessarily fill out any of the paperwork for you. CPA associations that are state-run may also help you find someone who can volunteer on your board, serve on the committee, or provide general assistance if you have any finance or bookkeeping questions. We encourage you to read as much information as possible, to review these videos again before making a final decision to start a nonprofit. You might want to consider additional options, both on the for-profit side, but also seek out opportunities to recruit a fiscal sponsor, possibly to help incubate your nonprofit idea, which could be a more practical and maybe even a less expensive way to start realizing your mission and vision than starting a whole new organization. Thank you again for your attention. I hope this series has been helpful, and we wish you the best of luck with your nonprofit. Thank you.